Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Jug Show. So, today, we're not going to do a big catching up, but because I missed it last week, we're going to be talking about the Invincible Woman in the Fantastic Four by Ryan North. So, did I like this issue? Yes. Are there a few problems? I wouldn't call them problems. It's kind of like the situation of it. Remember how last time I did the video for the Fantastic Four, and I was discussing how I felt the marketing kind of, not ruin it, but kind of messed with it as a whole, seeing as the fact they had the Invincible Woman covers using Malice. So kind of, the Malice design, mainly from Marvel Rivals, and how that kind of spoiled what the Invincible Woman was. How, despite the fact it was essentially the kids, almost like their, I don't want to say debut issue, but kind of like their time to finally start stepping up. And we still had a Sue cover. Not only that, we had no cover that focused just on the kids, despite the fact it was kind of their issue. So these are the kind of problems I'm actually having with the Fantastic Four at the moment. I feel like that as not as a medium, but like as their franchise in Marvel Comics, they could be doing a lot more. Like the reason, okay, so like there's things that I think they could be doing better. Like I said, more like marketing, focusing on like maybe what's happening on the issues. If something big's happening, we put some focus on these individual aspects of why it's big. See, because this is actually a big arc. This is a huge arc. The problem is, it doesn't feel like it is. I think that this particular 7-part arc should actually feel a lot bigger. We're getting a brand new Fantastic Four villain who is the evil version of Susan, and not even just the way that Malice was. What is actually interesting about the Invincible Woman and Malice is that they are actually very different beings. I'll get to that in a second. Another reason why it's big, the kids are now starting to step up. They might not have the absolute trust of the family, of the parents, but the fact that they're now doing things, they're now out there, they're now fighting, they're getting fighting experience, they're now also interacting with other superheroes, like we have Franklin here with Iron Man, and that can only get bigger. Well, it has to only get bigger. The unfortunate part about the Fantastic Four kids, actually no, we'll get to that later too. So another reason why this should be big, it's also the fact that we're finally using Dan Slott's Reckoning War. The idea of going out there past what was supposedly the edge of the universe, now that the universe is 9/10 bigger. I think it was 9/10. So we have that type of development. We have the Future Foundation making a comeback. Whether at the very end it's going to be what Maria Hill wants or it's going to be something completely different. Who knows? I don't know, but I'm not sure how that's going to go. I get the feeling it might be a little bit MCU inspired, which means I can't imagine it. See, the reason why I can't imagine it being under Maria Hill is simply because that's a think tank. And it's just dedicated to one single idea of imagining what these heroes could do. So I can't imagine that being like that pinnacle. When the Future Foundation, even in the Fantastic Four movie, was actually a pretty big deal. So taking it from you take it from either Hickman or you take it from the MCU, you had like not just a think tank, but it was a school and a brand new sense of found family. Or you take from the MCU, which was a full-on, not charity. How do I describe this? It was a full-on proper organization made by Sue that actually led to the disarmament of the entire planet. So either one, if you just go to the idea of a simple SHIELD think tank, I feel like you'd be doing both sides a disservice. So I don't think that's where we're going to go. But the fact that we're having these big developments in the Fantastic Four, in what is a good story and also a very good issue, it feels like it's not as big as it should be. I feel like these issues should have gotten maybe a bit more advertisement, maybe hinting what could also come down the line from it. Like, the fact is, they should be getting a lot of focus. Now that I'm thinking about it, a lot of stories really aren't getting that kind of focus when it comes to Marvel. Like, I remember back during the Cullen era, there were like teasers and hints and all these different types of like fun slogans they were coming up with, and even not even just for the X-Men, like yeah, Devil's, like, not Devil's Reign, but you had Axe coming out. That one big. And that, well, that was an event. But the point is, even when they were having their own small issues and events, like even when Dan Slott's Reckoning War came up, that actually got like a bunch of teasers and stuff like that. Like, I miss the motion comics they used to do for those events, like when they're during that point in time. I think they should bring those back. The point is, it's not feeling as big as it could actually be, because I think it could be very, very big. But, continuing on. So, as we got to our 2 points that I was making before, but decided to cut myself off, the difference between Malice and the Invincible Woman is actually very good, and I think might even play a part in Susan reeling from what could actually become. Like, the fact is, she's faced Malice, and now she's faced the Invincible Woman. To most people, they're probably going to be the same. Well, to some people, at least. They're going to be like, because we have people calling the Invincible Woman Malice. But the fact is, they are two very, very different characters. And I'm not just talking about the idea of their origins or like how Malice is technically Sue in a way. I'm talking about the fact that Malice was based mainly off the idea of resentment, anger, these kinds of negative emotions that make you lash out. The kinds of like so like you get angry, you throw a punch at something. That was kind of how Malice was built. She was built off Susan's rage, basically. It's when she became very unreasonable and started lashing out, starting attacking. That was Malice. Anger, resentment, rage, just become unreasonable. All these kind of things. Repressed negative emotions not being able to get out. That was Malice. The Invincible Woman, on the other hand, is embracing positive emotions. This is where it gets fascinating. While you had one that was unresolved anger, we now have one that is just unbridled joy. But the unbridled joy has led to destruction, death, all these kind of things. Susan has now seen two sides of her be taken a completely negative connotation. That's what's fascinating about this. She holds back her anger. Now she holds back her anger, she's going to get Malice. She holds back her joy, like she expresses joy, she gets the Invincible Woman. These two versions of Sue are actually just like parts of her now. She has to look at herself and thinking, if I allow joy in my life, I might end up like the Invincible Woman. If I let myself be angry, I could end up like Malice. She's going to have a whole freaking head whammy about the idea of who and what she could actually end up being. Because now she can't even... Just the idea that of feeling joy and pride and your power could actually lead to death and devastation. And when it came to the Invincible Woman, the death and devastation was completely accidental. That's actually a very fascinating way of looking at it. And I feel like, and I'm hoping that's the way we're going to go. Two versions, the positive emotion and the negative emotion of the evil form of Susan. We actually have essentially, you have this actual sadist in the Invincible Woman. But when it came to Malice, it doesn't even really... Here's the thing. This is going... Okay, this might sound a bit weird, but, because of where we're going. When it came to, Malice's design and the idea of being called the Mistress of Hate, the idea was definitely coming off the idea of a dominatrix. But the thing is, the domination of a dominatrix doesn't do it... It's not a rage thing. It's not expressing anger, or repressed anger and hate and all that. Their job is about control and allowing the, let's call them clients, to release that sense of control. So the fact is, it really like, even with that kind of scenario, it doesn't actually kind of fit. That's what I'm saying. So just these two versions of them is actually going to be very, very interesting to think about when it comes to Sue in the future. And then you had the kids. The reason why I think that they needed some focus when it came to the advertisement and when it came to like just putting their story out there, this is something that's actually irked me a lot of times. But every time the kids kind of have almost like their own breakout, like things that revolve around them, things that could make their story, their part of the Fantastic Four story, more critical, bigger, more like their own deal. It either gets pulled back or just like it doesn't break. They don't break through. They do something cool, but it just feels like another story. It's not. It doesn't center around them. It doesn't feel like it's their story. It's the Fantastic Four, and here's the kids doing things. So that's the tricky part, and I really feel like this page, this one individual page, really helps with that. Because the fact is, there's nothing more to it than the fact that they're doing superhero stuff. They're not relying on their parents. They do have help, but they're not relying on their parents. They're just doing the superhero stuff. They're fighting. They're fighting back against. I think these are the aliens from the first part of the Invincible Woman arc, and they're just unarmored. So the fact that we're seeing this in such a positive light, in a way that's just like it's completely their own. The closest one we had to this was definitely 4X back in, I think it was 2020, and that was definitely more surrounded of Franklin. But that got covered up by both the combination of Dan Slott's retcon of him being a mutant, and the fact, see, here's the thing about me, I don't think that retcon really should have actually stopped Franklin's story when it came to Krakoa. I think there was a lot more stories we could have. I think there were just as many stories to tell from Franklin keeping his mutation as there could have been of Franklin losing his mutation. I think there could have been a lot more about that. But the fact not only was it dropped, it kind of was pretty much covered up because like they never really, I don't feel like they really finished it. And I don't even mean like it didn't feel resolved in the way that the fact that Franklin was able to go to their parties and have a good time, the fact that Susan was able to just crack jokes over grand revelations, it really felt like they just went, nah, not doing that. Despite the fact that they could, just like they didn't have to deal with something that could have actually, like, actual anger, like things like a genuine decent argument against what the X-Men were doing, something that like they really upset these people, but they didn't want to do it, and it was very frustrating. So the fact that we're now, it seems like that North is going to push the kids a little bit more as just as the everyday superheroes. Like he's not going to do an intense story that's going to require their parents. He's going to break them out by them doing something that's just all them. Because another example is when Dan Slott introduced Joe and Nikki, and Franklin and Valeria had to go rescue them when they first came to Earth. The problem with that is that they had Spider-Man and Wolverine show up and be part of the team. It wasn't just Franklin and Valeria. Because the fact is, even though they're allying themselves with these other superheroes, they asked for the help in the middle of the fight. They tried to handle things, and now they are handling things. And that's the thing. I feel like it needs to be bigger. I think we need to really put that on a scope. This is actually happening. The kids are now starting to stand on their own 2 feet. I think that's also part of the story we need to keep going. And all I think is that we just need to get them into either their own book, to maybe they just need their own stories, completely on their own. I think that's the next development we really need to do. So, that's what I'm thinking this book is both doing. That's what I'm thinking this book is doing well, and I feel like it's just too enclosed. That's its biggest issue. It's too enclosed, despite the fact we're introducing a very powerful new Marvel villain, And we're getting the kids to now stand on their own 2 feet. They're going to start getting their own stories, hopefully. And with this new revelation of the Future Foundation, it really feels like this should be bigger. This should have been advertised as bigger. Ryan probably should have gotten like extra 2 pages per comic, or it should have been advertised as big. Like, even just like its own, like maybe just like a single tie-in, because this is a whole new level when it comes. This is a whole different level when it comes to the Fantastic Four, and it's very interesting to go into. So the fact that I've actually talked about these kind of particular breakdowns of the character, how about we actually get into the comic? So it immediately picks up where it left off. So when it actually comes to the actual comic, I pretty much broke down exactly what I think was actually really interesting and big of the actual comic. But when it came to the actual artwork, the panels, like the bigger thing about the comic, like the bigger topic discussion, we've gone through that. But now we talk about the comic itself. Because this was a very exciting comic. Like, when the Fantastic Four just under Ryan North started coming out, and it felt so new, it felt different. He was taking it different directions. He was keeping it in self-contained stories, but yet somehow it felt very critical to each individual character. That was getting me excited. Over time, yeah, it started becoming, like, I was excited each issue, but, it was kind of losing the whole, it felt new kind of flair. And of course it wasn't new. He's written over 40 issues now. But this actually did make me feel that feeling again, because this is all very different. Like, we've never actually seen the Fantastic Four do these things. For starters, we're now seeing the Invincible Woman. She's actually using electricity in the nervous system to actually electrocute these, like, Sue, Ben, Johnny. And what's actually... See, here's the thing. When I first saw the panel of Ben getting zapped, it confused me, because Ryan told, like, he wrote the Ben fighting the Marvel Universe one. I can't remember what it was called. And the robot Storm shot a lightning bolt at him, and he could just brush it off. So the fact that he's actually getting electrocuted from the inside is kind of like, it freaked the hell out of me. And then we did something that I was actually really, really excited for, because I've been wanting this for so long. The idea that Susan can actually create her own duplicate army. Like, I was just after, like, at least a duplicate, but the idea that she can create the force field constructs to match her shape, and then use the color manipulation ability to fill them with color. And we just hit that. There was no, like, easing into it. He just had it slammed right up. Right up. It was just great. It was exhilarating. It was just a great development. And it got me so excited, because this is the thing that's actually really exciting. We've all known that Sue has been powerful, but when it comes to, like, a sense of dynamics when it came to her power, it actually felt very lacking. But the fact is, like, if you, like, let's say if you watch out, if you've seen, like, some of the most powerful feats, but look at it individually, it does have a sense of disinterest, really. It seems cool, but she's just throwing something. They don't make it a big deal, except for the fact that, like, she took out Exeter, the Celestial Executioner. That in itself is a big feat, but what you say is, she took out Exeter with her powers. But then you go deeper, and it's because that her force fields resonate on the same frequency as the armor, because the Celestials come from hyperspace, where Susan's power comes from. So even if you do that whole full sentence, it's still just, she's powerful enough to destroy a Celestial. This is where just the visual practicality of the abilities is something that's been a little bit on the lacking side. Like, she's done cool things, but it's always been like a big show of power. Nothing this intricate, nothing this, like, practiced, really. This is why it's getting fun. This is why it's getting exciting. And frankly, you can even say the same thing about Ben and Reed here, about the idea of Ben actually, because the thing is, when it comes to Ben, you don't see a lot of these kind of feats. It's usually him punching something, or him lifting something, classic super strength feats. He doesn't really do the whole the thunderclap type of deal, or the big smashes deal, because that's usually a whole thing, but you know what I mean. So the fact he's doing that, we got Reed doing the fan deal. It's always so fascinating. It's really cool to look at, and I really don't think we could have gotten a better artist for this. I've been arguing with some other Fantastic Four fans about Ramos's work, and yes, sometimes it does look a bit weird, and probably not for this particular occasion, but for this book, with how dynamic we're going here, he's the perfect artist, because that's where Ramos really shines. Dynamic artistry. What I mean is, like, there are some artists who are very stiff. The first one that comes to mind is Phil Noto. He's a good artist, but he's not very good at the movement. He's not very good at displaying movement. Like, honestly, when I've read the comics where he's done the interior, each individual page felt like its own poster. But that's also a good thing when it comes to Noto, because it means he's also he's very good when it comes to his cover art. That stuff, it really hooks you, it gets you interested. But Ramos here, his work is incredibly dynamic. You feel the movements. Each one, it doesn't feel like a wasted page. Like, the character moves, you feel it, they twist the body, you actually feel the dynamics of the fight. You're sucked in and you go with the flow. Nothing is taking you out. That's actually a really big benefit to having Ramos as the artist in Fantastic Four during a big fight sequence. And then, when it comes to having Ramos as the artist, we got this scene. This scary, 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 scary scene. Because when it comes to Ramos, he absolutely wins when it comes to body horror. So as they're actually fighting, we're having our big fight, and then we get to the scary ass freaky body horror. Now, this isn't only just Ramos. This is also the colorist. This is the combination of Humberto Ramos as the penciler and Victor Olazaba. Edgar Delgado. Actually, no, all three of them. Humberto Ramos penciler, Victor Olazaba as the inker, and Edgar Delgado as the colorist. Respect those three names. They put this whole thing together, alongside with VC's Joe Caramagna. Okay? He's the letterer. The fact is, those guys put together a very visually appealing comic book that perfectly displays the dynamics of this battle, as well as the absolute terror of body horror. This is actually very scary to look at, and some artists, I don't think, could have pulled it off as creepy as this. Because if you're watching, it's like the difference of watching a person actually being, okay, so let's say you're watching a medical drama. It's creepy to look at when they're doing some big brain surgeries, and you actually see the images of a person's brain. It's disturbing, but it's a surgery, so it kind of feels kind of okay. You don't shy away. You're just like, ugh. But then you're watching an actual horror movie, and then you see the brain again. It's actually disturbing. So in some comics, even if they're trying to hit body horror, or maybe they're just not fluid enough for body horror, they don't do good body horror because you're not really feeling the terror. It feels like you're watching the surgery in a medical drama. But here, this is fucking terrifying. This is horrifying. This is scary. And this is the absolute... Oh, man, I don't want to say those words. Get me cancelled. Even though she's losing her eyelids, her face, you really feel the terror coming from Sue being... Oh, what's the word? She's being beaten by this woman. Despite how powerful she is, she can't go as far as the Invincible Woman. That's why it's so freaking scary. She doesn't feel like she can beat him, even though they match. But this woman will go so much further. Mindset matters. That's a whole big deal when it comes to fighting, when it comes to even the difference between two characters who are actually the same character. The mindset. The Invincible Woman is more skilled at her abilities of both the force fields and the colors and the light bending. So the fact that she pushes herself, she thinks, what more can I do? That mindset has made her more powerful. despite the fact there's still more to Susan's powers on a grand conceptual level. But you don't need the conceptual level right now. Just at a base level of how filled with utility, like how to, what's the word I'm looking for? What am I looking for? What are the words I'm looking for here? Just how versatile her powers are, just with the force fields and the light bending alone, is actually incredibly impressive. And we're seeing that now. We're actually seeing how versatile she can actually be. And the best part about Ryan North is that we're doing that with all 4 characters, actually. This is what really makes this run so exciting. We're now seeing how much more these characters can do, because so many other writers, they just do Reed stretches and then he'll just stretch a little further, or he's just smarts his problems away. Johnny burns even hotter. Ben puts more will into it, so he picks up the heavy thing despite the fact he couldn't 5 minutes ago. He's actually building on their power sets and using intelligence and science to build upon what they can actually do. We literally just had Johnny making invisible fire not that long ago. It was incredible, and this is what really makes this run exciting. But now we've hit, well, let's call it current peak, because we don't know what other things he's going to hit us with. Like, this hasn't been, like, how exciting Ryan has made powers of the Fantastic Four hasn't been this exciting since probably Reed stretching into the 4th dimension, and that was a while ago. And while we've had exciting moments, it's never been this big. We're actually having her using temperature control now. We're having her throwing her own fireballs. The fact that she can be the 4-in-1, all 4 of the Fantastic Four into this one individual. And it's just incredibly good to watch. We're watching, and we keep going, and we see more and more dynamic moments. This was a great issue. This was perfect for Humberto Ramos. And then we see the fact, and here's what really scary, she can move faster than light. The fact that in a week, this ship got from the Milky Way galaxy to the edge of the universe, and the fact that Susan, the Invincible Woman, can keep up with her. We're actually building the base level of Sue Storm on a very, very terrifying level. She is not to be messed with. Just how powerful she can be, and we're still not into a connection with hyperspace or anything like that, like we saw with what's his name, Hyperstorm. Like when they came to connecting to hyperspace, Hyperstorm could actually grow plants. He could control the natural energies of everything. So the fact that she can actually that's probably the only thing that's going to keep him from the Invincible Woman from being an absolute cosmic threat. The fact she doesn't have that connection yet. Like, that kind of connection didn't come in until the 90s with by DeFalco, and I don't think we reached that point, so she probably doesn't know about this kind of stuff. She doesn't actually know where her force field powers comes from. But she's showing she doesn't need it. And like I said, we get to these pages, and I'm very excited here because this does feel like the kids are breaking out now. They've got their own, because they're now fighting these big aliens, and they've got their own Fantastic Four uniforms, which actually is, unlike Slot's. When Slot did it, and also pretty much every other type of, this is what's actually really exciting. Despite, when they had Franklin and Valeria, they had, as well as the Future Foundation, they all shared the uniform. The uniforms were all the same except for the emblem in the center. But now, the designs of the uniform is actually completely different. It's their own uniform using the Fantastic Four. It's kind of like how the X-Men work. The fact that they can have their own uniforms, but it's still a match. It's still of a match. It's still the same brand. So the fact we're doing that now does actually give me a bit more hope. The fact that these kids are going to start pushing off on their own. Really hope to see their own book, because that would probably be the best way to really show off the kids. What's also really exciting is the idea of what's going to happen next issue. That it's going to be the Invincible Woman versus essentially the world. And we've actually got some pretty heavy hitters here. Like, this is probably who the Invincible Woman is going to beat, who she's going to take on. And we don't have slouches. We actually have, well, for starters, we have Storm, we have Captain Marvel, we have the Vision, and these guys, they're not slouches. We even have the Scarlet Witch. So is the Invincible Woman going to beat all these folks? How's that going to happen? I'm very excited to see that. And I'm also very excited because I'm seeing the fact that the Avengers that are here, they're kind of like teaching the kids as well. We got Iron Man also like backing up Franklin. He's not trying to hold him back or anything. He's not putting him in the back. It's just really good to see. So this was actually a really great issue. I just think there should be more of it. It just doesn't feel like there's enough at the moment. It's too small. And Ryan feels like he's trying to push how much he can get out of just this small area. Because the fact is, he did single issues at most. He did two issues that connect as a story. But now we're going bigger and bigger, and it feels like he can't actually. It's like there's too much happening now, and that's not. And I don't mean that in a bad way, because sometimes that can actually be a bad thing. But it feels like he wants to do all these things, and it's fitting okay. But it should actually be bigger. We should be showing this off a lot more. So, wrapping up, it really feels like that the brand of the Fantastic Four is just too small. And it's very frustrating because the fact is, we have over the X-Men, they keep constantly getting new books. Not as many as the Krakoa era now, but the fact is their books keep going off. The Fantastic Four keep being in like the top 10. It's been in the top 10 and some of the best sellers that Marvel's got currently. Even with the Avengers, you always have their own solos going off. It just really feels like it would be a good time to really like start expanding, especially with introducing the Future Foundation. So the fact that also it's getting a bit weird because we got the solicitation for months. I think it's June or April's, and it's just this weird, funny, random story between Reed and Johnny going to ancient Rome that looks like it's just like Ryan's just poking fun at Gladiator because it had Pedro Pascal and Joseph Quinn in the actual movie. So it feels like he's just doing it because he had a funny idea and he just wanted to go for it. He's just poking it. So that's what's going to be. So the fact that we're going from Future Foundation to that is a bit weird. It's just a bit weird to me. And I'm really hoping that with the next solicitation, or at least like what comes after that, is going to be a little bit better. Like I feel like it should be bigger. It should be more exciting. It should have its own corner, but they don't want it, and it's very frustrating right now. Like they should have their own books that are crossing over, like we got with Venom and Spider-Man, but we don't. But we could, and we should. It's not like we got a shortage of characters, and it's not like the kids don't have the shortage of their own stories. Like I said, there could have been plenty of stories about the whole thing with Krakoa and Franklin, even with that retcon. And I still feel like they could still tell some of the stories. They just wouldn't be as big or, frankly, as interesting. But I feel like there's still something there. We can still talk about how Valeria died recently. We can talk about how the Kree-Skrull Alliance has now been dissolved and what that could mean for Joe and Nikki. It's not like these kids don't have stories that not tell. So that's my whole point. I feel like we could do so much more with these characters that it could be really exciting, but we're just stuck with this one book, and this proves that we got a good writer, an exciting writer, as well as exciting artists that could do something really, really incredible. So anyway, that's my point. And I hope you guys just had just as much fun talking comics. I'll see you guys later.